Hey people, it is 6 o'clock in the morning. I've slept 4 hours, and obviously, if I can't sleep, my entire line of thought was, of course, I should go and make an improvised review, and make an improvised review of a movie I don't really know what to say about. But then again, that's never stopped me before, so this should not be so hard. Last Friday, I had the immense pleasure of going to see the latest Pixar movie, Cars 2. Now, Pixar, I think to understand this movie, you need to explain your position on Pixar in general, and probably animated films. Like, I've always been of the mind that animated films have gotten a bad rap. People, a lot of people anyway, seem to, still today, consider them a children's medium that should not be, like, enjoyed by adults as much as by children, unless you're in the company of children. And in fact, Tangled, which is probably my favorite film of all time, at this point, is a film that I went to see 7 times in the movie theater. And I had one of my colleagues, she kept asking me, why don't you, can't you bring my daughter if you're going to go see it again, or something, because she thought that, how can a grown man go to see a movie about a princess and think that it's that amazing? And, well, basically, I feel like, even though people usually have forgiveness for Disney because it's nostalgia, that Pixar is the company that made animation for grown-ups. At least out of Japan. I mean, anime has always been for grown-ups and for children, depending on what anime it is, because that's a much more wide audience scope, or subject matters can be different. But Pixar was always a company that made the Western animation for grown-ups in a larger scale. Now, I love Pixar. I love everything that studios put out, pretty much, except for the original Cars. Toy Story is amazing. Toy Story 2 the same. And Bug's Life is pretty much Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, but with bugs and with no death, but still and those were the early days when the studio was still finding their spot, finding what they were good at, and what made them unique from the rest of the animation studios out there. When they really started to become amazing was somewhere around where the studio hired Brad Bird, of one of the co-creators and first real screenwriters on The Simpsons, onto the show, onto the studio, when they made Finding Nemo, which I'm not really that much of a fan of, but it's still a really good movie. The Incredibles, Monsters Inc., and, well, my favorite movies are actually the latest ones. Ratatouille, I think, is an underrated film in a lot of cases, because a lot of people think that movie's boring, but actually I think it's a fantastic film, because it's slow and contemplative, and it just lets you take in the atmosphere rather than just have it be slapstick and quick dialogue. WALL-E is a movie that has almost no dialogue in its first half, and it is amazing, and it's fantastic for it. And Up is one of the most heartbreakingly beautiful stories I have ever seen in my life, and I mean that with everything. If you take away anything from this review, except for what I'm going to say about Cars 2, take away that Up is an amazing, amazing film that when it is just beautiful. And Cars, to Cars. When the original Cars came out, I was forgiving, because it wasn't a bad film. A lot of people say it's a bad film. It's not a bad film. It's a mediocre film. It's if it came from DreamWorks, I wouldn't say anything about it. It would be a better movie if it was a DreamWorks movie, even if they didn't change anything, because up until recently, DreamWorks has not really been of the same caliber as Pixar. They have never really had that adult and childish thing gone on together. They've sort of been more of even though everyone's enjoyed DreamWorks movies also, they've been more toward the childish aspect of the grown-up mind. It's been more about the laughs, like the Shrek movies, Megamind. Like, they have somewhat like grown up. Again, like all animation has like some sort of grown-up core at the heart of the story. Even Shrek does, but it also depends on how you use the jokes, the humor. Is it related to like childish humor or grown-up humor? Good animated movies always have that sort of scope where the jokes are usually made, like the heart of the jokes are for grown-ups, and then there are childish jokes spread out so children won't feel lost. But like if you go back and watch animated movies you haven't seen in a while, you may come to find that the jokes are easier to understand now than they were when you were a kid, because the jokes weren't really made for you when you were a kid, even though you laughed at some of the other things that, you know, the more like visual jokes. But anyway, Cars would have been a better movie if it was a DreamWorks movie, because we didn't expect it to be you don't expect a DreamWorks movie to be amazing. You expect it to be funny. And Cars wasn't bad, it just was a terrible Pixar movie because it didn't show off what that studio could do that no other studio could do. You have this hero car, Lightning McQueen, who's this douchebag race car that doesn't that needs to learn his life lesson of he's not the only person in the world, and he needs to accept other people, other cars, and that they have as much value that he does, and that like when he gets trapped in this small town in the middle of nowhere, and so these people, like, they're the heart of America. It was underwhelming, sadly. So when I found out that this was the first Pixar movie that wasn't a Toy Story movie that was going to get a sequel, that really, really saddened me. Because honestly, even though I don't hate Cars, it was definitely the one movie in that, like, I don't really like don't like the idea of having an Up sequel. Or, let's see, is there any other, like, Ratatouille? No, that story's finished too. I could see them doing an Up sequel. That could almost be good, depending on how you look at it. But, I mean, you have this fantastic story arc through the Toy Story films. Like, the first Toy Story movie is just the fear of being replaced. The second movie is the fear of being forgotten. And the third movie is the outcome of the second movie. What happens from the choice that Woody makes at the end of that movie. And it's a fantastic story arc. And with the third installment, which is almost heartbreaking on every single point, yet beautifully so, I don't understand how Cars could ever have a story arc like that. It just felt like, I get how you can make a sequel to Toy Story, and you made the exact right choices with it. But what do you do with Cars? I mean, like, seriously, what do you do? That story was finished. Lightning McQueen learned his stupid sports montagey message of, like it's more important to be a good person than to win a fucking car race. Whoop-de-fucking-do. What do we need a sequel to that? And I guess that's my problem with Cars 2. It's an unnecessary movie that doesn't need to exist, and that's just a pain. Okay, I should just get to the plot of this movie because I don't want this review to get too long, especially because I'm sitting outdoors and, you know, there are birds singing and everything. God forbid you hear anything beautiful in this review, because the movie I saw certainly wasn't beautiful. Yeah. So the plot of this movie is that this old, like, car, I guess he's not that old, but like this car, which is basically, he's supposed to be some sort of like millionaire car, has invented a new organic fuel that's supposed to replace gasoline, because gasoline is so, like, it's fossil fuel, you know. It's supposed to be like, this movie is supposed to be environmentally aware, even though it's terrible. It's like nowhere near as subtle or effective as WALL-E wasn't subtle. I'm overreacting if I say that WALL-E was subtle, but WALL-E at least made me care. This movie does not make me care when you say, like, oh yeah, we're like, when this car is standing, like, oh, we're using, you know, gasoline. It's called fossil fuels, man. See, fossil, like dead dinosaurs. We need to stop using gasoline. And I'm like, oh dear fucking God, you couldn't have made this message any fucking worse. But this car with this new fuel, which I think is called All in Oil or All in All, or something like that. He has arranged this 3-part race throughout the world. I think it's Japan, it's England, and it's Italy, where they have to race on these circuits through the cities, through 3 cities, through Tokyo. I don't know if it's like Milan or I don't think it's Rome, but some Italian city, and then London. They have to race through these 3 circuits to win this cup, which is supposed to like show All in All or All in Oil as it's like how awesome it is, because that's one requirement that all these cars, these race cars, have to drive on this new gasoline. And of course, Mater being the inbred hillbilly truck that I didn't like in the first movie, being the stupid idiot that he is, has to get Lightning McQueen just like snared into this, even though Lightning McQueen at first doesn't really want to do it. He's already said no several times, but then Mater comes like when he hears this other sports car played, to be fair, well, by John Turturro, this Italian, of course, like Formula 1 car, being played by cocky John Turturro. Just act like, oh no, Lightning McQueen, he would never challenge me because I am so much faster than him. He has rims on his wheels. Why does he have that? A stupid car. Yeah. So Lightning McQueen, after Mater sort of trash talks a little bit, decides to do this race, and the rest of the plot pretty much goes around Michael Caine, who should not be in this movie because he's way too good for it. Michael Caine playing this super agent car, Finn McMissile, who is following this band of basically James Bond villains who have this camera that's really a laser rifle that somehow like it sends out some sort of not EMP, but it sends out some sort of radiation that reacts with the fuel in the cars and burns them out. It doesn't kill them, but it burns them out, so that it can blow them up, but they don't use it to blow them up. Even though there's a surprising amount of cars killing cars in this movie. Like this movie gets sort of semi-dark, really. In the first scene with Michael Caine, you see him, or by extension, the cars themselves, ending up in situations that make them blow up, make them drown, and all this shit, and it's terrible. I'm like, whoa, dude, I know these are villains, but come on. I mean, seriously. I get their cars, but don't kill them. That's like when Zack Snyder tried to have us not care about the fact that owls were fucking killing each other, ripping each other's limb from limb in Legends of the Guardians. You can't do that. I mean, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see cars killing each other. I don't want to see owls killing each other. That is one of the stigmas of kids' animation that I don't want to be taken away. Use death effectively. Make me care. Don't just kill things randomly, especially not something like this. This is the most childish franchise that Pixar has, because this is a franchise that is not even made on selling the movie itself. This movie has essentially been a failure. It's gotten very bad reviews, and it's gotten almost no of the... I want to put this into context before I continue with the rest of the movie's plot. Toy Story and this movie had the same budget, $200 million. Last time I checked, and it must have gone up since then, last time I checked, which was about a week before I went to see the movie, about 2 weeks ago in other words, this movie had made $350 million at the box office. That is, in other words, it has not even made twice as much as its budget being $200 million. Toy Story, however, had a budget of $200 million and broke the $1 billion barrier, which no other animated film has done yet. And Toy Story, which has the word toy in the title, is not nearly as childish as this. In fact, Toy Story 3 is probably the most adult animated film ever made by the House of Mouse. And don't say Roger Rabbit. Don't give me some of that, because that's not an animated film altogether. but you get what I'm saying. It's a very adult film. But this franchise is made on merchandising. I mean, I work in a grocery store where we sell, we sell like pictures to have on cakes. We have a bakery and we sell these pictures you can just put on the cake. And Cars is pretty much the biggest seller, at least for boys. I think it's the biggest seller, all in all. Either that or Spider-Man. God knows the kids don't even know what the hell Spider-Man is, except they know that they should like Spider-Man these days. Not about that, but still. This franchise is made on merchandising. You go into any toy store, you'll find an entire aisle of car stuff. Why? Because boys are supposed to like cars. Give me a fucking break. You tell me you can't find a better role model than Lightning McQueen, the douchebag car that needs to be told that he's not worth more than others because he's made a ton of money? Or Mater, the hillbilly car, who in this movie is the hero. Yeah, that's the plot. The plot is that, yeah, they're going to go on this world tour and they're going to win these races to show how awesome this new fuel is and how they can save the world. And then Finn McMissile and this other female car this other agent car played by Emily Mortimer, again, wasted British talent, whose name is Holly Shiftwell, I think. Basically, there's of course, on all these movies that have this plot, both animated and real comedic movies, there's a big mix-up, and they think that Mater is their contact, their American contact, because they have this really stupid phrase that they're supposed to use to, how there's always a phrase where someone says something and the other one's supposed to say, that's because, in this movie it's something about how a car acts a certain way with their engine, and then Mater says, well, of course that's why, because they don't have this and this and this in their engine. And it's stupid because it's too obvious. All it would take was for a car to know this certain information about another car's engine, which of course Mater does because he's a fucking tow truck, and everything falls apart, and that's what happens. Showing that the intelligence of, the British intelligence isn't very high. But anyway, of course, Mater gets roped into this whole thing. At the same time, as he's doing this and not understanding that he's being led along into some sort of spy plot, he's also fucking up Lightning McQueen's first race. Meaning that Lightning McQueen pretty much says that, Mater, get out of here. You're no good. You're messing stuff up. Go home and fix yourself, man. You're embarrassing me. There's this horribly stupid scene in the movie where Mater goes to a sushi bar while Lightning McQueen is at this opening ceremony, and he goes up there with his stupid Larry the Cable Guy idiocy and says, and looks at a tray of wasabi. He's like, "What's that? You got pistachio ice cream?" And the guy behind the counter, who obviously doesn't know English, gives him a tiny little speck. He's like, "Give me a real scoop." And then he gives him a little bit more. He's like, "No, man, give me more. It's free, isn't it?" And he dumps the entire fucking thing on his plate. And Mater just takes his stupid ass tongue and shoves his tongue underneath the wasabi. And already at this point, shouldn't you fucking know that you've done something bad? As soon as it contacts with your tongue, you should know. Even if it just takes 2 seconds to shove it in your mouth, you should realize that as soon as it gets contact with your tongue, you should realize this ain't no pistachio ice cream. It's not cold, and it certainly does not create a smooth flavor in your mouth. But anyway, of course, he swallows all this wasabi, and he makes a complete fucking ass of himself. But after that, he gets roped into the spy plot. He goes with Emily Mortimer's character and Michael Caine's character, and tries to help this organization from fucking the race over on this new fuel. And I guess the whole thing is that these evil spy cars, they're being run, the entire organization is consisting of lemons, cars that suck ass, the worst cars through history. Ironically, the DeLorean is not one of them. I would kind of find that funny if they could license the DeLorean, but no, it's these old cars like Gremlins and stuff like that. These cars that are known clunkers. And, well, yeah, that's pretty much the plot. These cars are trying to fuck over these better race cars so they can prove that this fuel is bad. I've already explained too much of the story for anyone who wants to see the movie and doesn't want to know how it ends. So I'm going to say, movie's not good. Turn this review off right now if you don't want to hear the rest of the spoilers, because I'm going to go through the rest of the movie. Well, so when they get to Italy, these intelligent cars start to realize what's going on. The entire Italy part is it's not inconsequential, but I don't remember what it really brought to the plot. It kind of felt like the middle ground where they didn't really do anything, which could have been better. Like, it could have been better structured to make the movie better. But when they get to England, that's when Mater, because okay, when they're in Italy, Mater finds out that the big plan is that, like, these guys are fucking over race cars on the first two races, and basically the car who has made all this new fuel admits that, okay, I can't really allow these cars to continue using this fuel if it's going to be dangerous for them, because they obviously think that the fuel is like self-igniting. So he says, okay, the last race does not have to be run on all in all. You can use any fuel you want as long as we have to finish the race. But Lightning McQueen is the only race car that actually says that I'm going to keep on using this fuel. Until which point these evil cars look and they grimace at the camera like, Lightning McQueen must die. And Mater, who is present at this because he's become an infiltrator at this point, he's actually realized what the fuck's going on at this point. Even though Michael Caine, who again, supposed to be part of the British intelligence, doesn't realize that this idiot obviously isn't a fucking spy. But he's like, oh no, can't kill my best friend. And everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh shit, he's a spy. And shit happens. They end up in London and they get captured and and of course the classic, like, ticking clock where they're going to kill Lightning McQueen and they somehow need to stop this race from happening. They need to stop Lightning McQueen from dying at least. There's a terrible pun where they get, like, caught in, like, the gears of the Big Ben. Only it's not the Big Ben, it's the Big Bentley, if I'm not mistaken. And that was fucking excruciating. I'm like, oh no, worst pun ever in a Pixar movie. And of course, okay. Then there's the whole point. Like when they fire the laser or the radiation beam at Lightning McQueen and it doesn't work, and they're like, we must kill him anyway. We must put a bomb in his pit area. And Mater breaks free, and Mater's gonna go save his friend, and he gets there and he realizes that, oh no, I've been tricked. I'm the bomb, because he has a bomb strapped to you know, his hub, not to like his engine. He has a bomb in his engine, and then it becomes a race where Mater has to stay away from Lightning McQueen so that Lightning McQueen doesn't blow up. But Lightning McQueen, having realized that, oh no, Mater, you're my best friend, and I shouldn't have been mad at you because you're awesome and you're yourself and you should always be yourself. He basically realizes that he shouldn't revert into the shithole from the first movie again. So he's trying to drive after Mater, trying to explain to Mater that, oh, well, Mater, like, when I told you should grow up and try to be different, act different, he said, no, you shouldn't act different, because the you that you're in Radiator Springs is the you should be everywhere, and if the rest of the world can't accept that, then the rest of the world needs to change, because you're awesome just the way you are. And to a certain extent, yes, this movie at least does make me like Mater more. It just makes me like Lightning McQueen even less, because he's hardly in this movie. And even when he's in the movie, he kind of feels like he's not going through any development at all. Mater, at least, is going through some development, even though Lightning McQueen's whole shtick of try to be who you are and be true to yourself rings true as well. Mater at least grows up to a certain extent. At the end of this movie, I gotta say, I guess at that point, I mean, this movie isn't terrible. It's just unnecessary. But it does make me like Mater more. But still, it doesn't feel like I cared enough to begin with to really want a movie to make me like Mater more. But there's also like the point where like he's trying to, the misunderstanding's even worse when he's trying to drive away from Lightning McQueen, who's a race car, and he's a fucking tow truck, an old rusty heap of a tow truck, and he's all like, no, you don't understand, I'm a bomb. And then Lightning McQueen's like, that's what I'm trying to say, Mater, you are the bomb. It's like, you're the bomb. And I'm like, we haven't used that saying in 15 years. I mean, the bomb? Like, I honestly have thought of that a lot. Recently, too. This summer, I've had multiple conversations where, like, remember when the bomb was a way to say that you're awesome? It was like, oh, God, this movie actually used that as if that's a relevant joke? John Lasseter, wake up. I don't think the kids will understand what that is, and even if they do, they're probably going to do an even worse have an even worse reaction than I did and be like, the bomb? Really? Oh, God. Is there anything else to say? The animation is fantastic. It's really great. Like the speed of everything, the entire chase sequences, everything is really awesomely done technically. This movie's amazing technically. It's beautiful. The 3D was semi-effective. I saw Captain America 2 days ago. That movie had amazing 3D, and I think it kind of ruined this movie. I've seen a lot of movies in 3D this summer, and Captain America was the best one. I'll get to that. But this movie's 3D was there, but I honestly think it would have been better without the 3D, because even though the new stereoscopic 3D does not take away too much of the color, it does dim the color somewhat. I remember when I first saw Tangled on Blu-ray inside my house, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that I actually thought the other way was better. I mean, I have a 3D laptop, so I can watch it in 3D if I want to, but I kind of think that I think most movies, like at least animated movies, even though they have the best 3D mostly, a lot of them are better in 2D, with a good HD TV and a Blu-ray, because the colors are so crisp and beautiful, and you don't want to miss that. So if you're gonna go see this movie, go see it in 2D. I think that's pretty much it. The movie feels unnecessary. It does not feel like a movie. Like, Cars never felt like a movie that needed a sequel, and yet here it is, and I don't know what to say about it. It's obviously I do, because I've been rambling on for like half an hour, but I honestly don't feel like at the end of this movie, I just felt like Toy Story needed a 3, and of course this is the entire problem with this movie that I forgot to mention at all. This movie begins with a 5-minute long Toy Story short, like Hawaiian Vacation, I think it's called. It's about Ken and Barbie trying to stow away when Bonnie, the new owners of the toys from Toy Story, goes on vacation, and they end up in Bonnie's room instead, because Bonnie's not bringing her backpack from kindergarten to on her vacation. But Ken is so disappointed because he had all this stuff planned, man. He was even trying to get his and Barbie's first kiss to be amazing. So the toys help them out. And that's the problem, is that this 5-minute short, so much more charming, so much more beautiful, in every way a more fantastic thing than the original, than the whole movie that follows it is. It reminds you why we love the Toy Story characters, and by doing that, vastly undermines and ruins the Cars characters. It's like, oh, right, this other thing John Lasseter worked on, which is much better. Oh, wow. When I came out of that theater, I was like, wow, that Toy Story short was the best thing in the entire movie. Go figure. I don't think they should make a Toy Story 4, but if that's what they're going to do with it, just, yeah, keep making Toy Story shorts, man. They can't be worse than the Cars tunes they have on Disney Channel. I think that's pretty much it. It's a movie that feels unnecessary, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not boring to sit through. I'm not going to give it a high recommendation, but it feels kind of heartless, just like the first one. It kind of, like, you can tell that John Lasseter loves these characters, but it kind of feels like a lot of other people that are working on it might not, but they don't have the guts to tell him that, look, John, we're kind of wasting our time here. If you're gonna see any Pixar movie, that's the one Pixar movie. If you're gonna ignore any Pixar movies, ignore both Cars and Cars 2. Watch like almost every other movie that the studio's made. They're all amazing. But yeah, movie good or not good. It's okay. If you have kids that want to see it, go see it. I don't think it will hurt you that much. So yeah, Cars 2. Hopefully Monsters University and Brave will be better. Talk to you later.